The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. I'm India, the product specialist for Demonstrated Success, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar on reporting and Performance Plus Level 1. We're happy to have you with us today. I'd like to introduce Lisa Sweet, our Professional Development Specialist, and Karen Matzo, our Director of Professional Development and Literary Curriculum. They will be your presenters for today. I'm here to answer your questions as the ladies move through the presentation. But before we start, I'd like to draw your attention to the control panel so you know how to ask questions to get handouts and our polls. First, everyone on the webinar is on mute to avoid interrupting noise. But if you have a question, please type it in and I will stop Karen and Lisa and they will answer your questions. Also, there are handouts attached at the handout section at the bottom of the control panel. At the end of the webinar, if you have to stay on and ask any questions, we will unmute and have a little chat. Also, the webinar is recorded and posted on our Demonstrated Success resource website. All right, ladies, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Lisa Sweet, and I would like to welcome you to the Reports in Performance Plus Level 1 webinar. Thank you, India, for the introduction. And I also want to thank Karen for being here today. She will help field any questions that come along during the broadcast. And I think we're going to wait just one more minute. There are a couple of people clicking in, it looks like. So why don't we, if you go down on the control panel, you'll see polls. And if you select a poll, I think the same one is listed twice, but just take one of those and you can identify yourself by role while we're all waiting for everyone to get settled in. So we'll wait for about one more minute. Okay, are we ready to go? Karen, you ready?
I'm ready. I was just looking at the poll results.
Awesome. Let's see. Interesting. All right. If anyone has any questions at all along the way, you can go to the questions tab and type in a question and we will answer it as we go along.
And it looks like we have a handful of district administrators and it looks like a handful of teachers.
Excellent.
And just a small percentage of building admins.
Awesome. All right, well, welcome everybody. I think we can get started now. Again, I am Lisa Sweet and we have Karen Matzo. Let's see. To get to the proper screen. This is what we look like. And you can see our demonstrated success link if you would like to see the rest of the people on our team.
Lisa,
yes.
The screen is not forwarding.
Oh.
So
let's see.
I was just getting us out of there.
Okay.
So, and now see if the screen is forwarding.
Can you see that?
I only see the cover page.
Okay.
Indy,
well,
do you only see the cover page?
Yeah, I see today's goals now.
Now I see today's goals.
Okay.
Fabulous.
All right, so hopefully this will start working. Okay. So today we're going to take a look at some of the reports that you can create using Performance Plus. And in looking at the reports, we are hoping to help you develop an understanding of how and when you can use the different reports. We won't go in to detail about making the reports. This is really just an overview of the kind of reports there are and how you will use them. So as we go through, we're going to talk about general P+ reporting. Then we'll talk a little bit about individual student reports, performance tracker reports, and assessment builder reports. And then we can wrap up with any questions that you have. Okay,
And
so
can I jump in for one quick second? If anybody wants to stay after, and Lisa and I can both help you with report generation. So feel free, we'll open up after.
Yes, we'd be happy to help after with any questions that come up, or even during if you have questions. So when you log into Performance Plus, you will see the icons at the top of the page. And you probably all know this, but just to begin, to get to the reports, you're going to click on the bar graph, and that's how we get into the different reports. The main screen looks like this, and you'll have a My Reports area that has all the push reports or reports that you've saved. So the push reports are like New Hampshire SAS reports by grade or by subject, and there's a lot of good information in these push reports down here. And then up here is report 1, and that's where you would start creating your report. When you want to make a report, you will click on the Reports tab, and you have 2 choices. So the 2 choices are Performance Tracker and Assessment Builder. So if we were to click on Performance Tracker, it's a drop-down menu, and these are all of the options that you would have. If you clicked on Assessment Builder, again, it's a drop-down menu, and there are lots of options under there. So the difference between these, Performance Tracker shows you proficiency and standards reports, where Assessment Builder will show you item level reports. So if you really want to dig into a question and see how your students did on a certain question, you can do that in the Assessment Builder, and then Performance Tracker is going to give you reports on standards and proficiency levels. So on this slide, we just zoomed in on the menu so you can kind of see those a little bit better, but I'm sure you've seen them in Performance Tracker or in Performance Plus. Going into the next one, we'll start off with some student reports. So again, on the main page, you will see the icons, and if you point to the faceless students, you will get student level reports. So this would be if you wanted to look at a certain student. So you type in their first name or their last name, you might want to get a list of a class of students and just kind of look at the students that are coming into your class, for example. So if you typed in a name and hit search, you would get a list of the students that are now registered in your class. And so in my screen, all of my students are named John Smith. This happens because the data that we use in our webinars is in a de-identified database, so it's real data with no identifying information. So we can show you what it looks like without giving away any private information. So all of my students, in this case, are named John Smith. So if you did this, you would have all of your students listed in there. And so then if you wanted to look at a particular student, you would click on that name. And the top of the screen would give you information about that student with their grade and their birthday, what their ID is. And below that, you can see a list of all of the assessments. So you could choose what year of assessments you might want to look at with this bar and these choices here. And this bar here can jump you to different parts of this individual student report. So looking at the assessments of John Smith, he's a 4th grader, and we can see in here his grade 1 assessments, grade 2, grade 3, and some grade 4 fall. So these are all the assessments that John Smith has taken throughout his career in school, and these would be all of the ones that have been entered into P+. So anything that's entered into P+ is kept in here. So let's see. So that's, we can also see his proficiency level on the different assessments over here. And you could click if you only want to see state assessments, or if you only want to see local assessments, it'll sort that out for you. If you scroll further down on this report, you would get all of his classes that he was in and who his teachers were for the different classes. You could scroll down further and see student groups. So the information here is active. So this is this year. Inactive is all in the past. So we can see the days that John Smith was absent over time. So in 2015, it was 5 days, 2016, 4 days, a lot more in 2017. We can also see the number of schools John attended. And in this case, it's just 1. So he hasn't moved around a lot. So there's no flag there, but you might see that. If you scroll down a little bit further, you would be able to see interventions and any notes about John. So he doesn't have any listed in here, but this is a place where people can store and pass information from year to year, teacher to teacher, about students. And we also see his school building history, so we can see if he's moved around at all. And like we saw earlier, he has not. But sometimes if you see a student who has moved from school to school, that might be a flag for someone who may have missed out on some content. You might want to really pay attention to that. So,
Lisa, there's a question that came in.
Okay.
Somebody asked about the assessments at the top and how those assessments got in there.
Okay. Let's see, I know the SAS ones, the state enters them into Performance Plus. Local ones.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer that one?
Do you want me to? Either way, it doesn't matter, but I can answer
Yeah,
it
you should.
One. So the STAR assessment, as long as you sign an agreement with, I think it's Renaissance Learning, that is automatically uploaded into Performance Plus. The same with NWEA, the same with Dibbles and AimsWeb and iReady, same thing.
Yep.
You just have to sign an agreement. And then local assessment data that, for instance, any sort of local math assessments that you've created, or performance assessments or finals, that can be housed in Performance Plus and uploaded through a spreadsheet. So
that's a great question. Thank you for that.
Sure.
All of the ones shown here were uploaded automatically, so all this data is here without you having to do too much.
Yeah.
You also see a lot of like fact fluency. That's a good one to kind of track over time. So good question. Thank you for that. Okay. Then we were ready after, that was the individual student report. And that again, you got there by clicking on this pack of students here. And now we're back to a report. So we would have clicked on this bar graph here. And we're gonna look at performance tracker or the assessment builder. Those are our 2 choices here. And the next report we're gonna look at is a student assessment summary. So this is going to show all of the assessments that a group of students has taken. Okay, so in this case, I will have put in my class to create this report, and I will see this one comes up as Susie Smith, and she's in 5th grade. So these are all the assessments that she's taken. And this is sort of an old slide, but it shows her, this would still be in there now, though, because it holds it year after year. This is her SBAC when she was in 4th grade back in 2017. Her score is shown on all of these assessments by the filled in diamond, and then the state average is the open diamond. So you can kind of see where she is on the different levels. In another one, we have John Doe, also in 5th grade. And you can see he's got, this is the SBAC summative, he's got his fact fluency. This assessment is, I think, everyday math end of year, and then an everyday math mid-year. And then the report would go on further down and have different ELA assessments and any other assessments that might be in there. So those were 2 of these individual student level reports where you can kind of, it's a nice thing to have at the beginning of the year, so you can kind of see who's coming into your class and what their strengths and weaknesses might be. It kind of gives you a good background on your students and where they're coming from as you build your classroom in the beginning of the year.
Can I jump in for a sec? The other great thing about the student detail page on these reports is, like, if you had an IEP meeting or any sort of parent meeting, it's also a great way to, you know, show parents how kids are doing.
Yes, and you can print these out and have them so you can, you know, give them the background as to what you're seeing and what you want to talk about. Yeah, that's a great point too. Let's see. The next thing we're going to talk about are the performance tracker reports. Are there any questions at this point? Okay, Karen's done a good job fielding them as we've gone along. The next one, I love this one. It's a proficiency level pie chart. And this is really a great visual. It doesn't give you a lot of detailed information, but it can show you trends and kind of where you are. And you can show multiple assessments. So you could show ELA, math, and science for a grade, or you could show ELA for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. You could show it for different grades, or you could show it for different years. But this one looks really nice. It's a good way to start off a discussion. So this is an example of the SBAC summative for English Language Arts in grade 3 in 2017. And in this case, you see very nicely that this school is doing, or this class, it could be a grade, is doing very well. They've got 42.9% of their students are in the blue at level 4, and 32.7% of the students are at level 3. It's 16 is the number of students, and the percentage is over here, 32.7%. And they only have 1 student that's at level 1. And so this is, you know, a nice representation of the general data and the general trend. Like I said, you can show multiple grades. So that was grade 3, this is grade 4, and this is grade 5. So you can see trends that are happening. And in the report, these would be obviously all underneath each other, not on top of each other. But, okay. So that's a great starting place to look at some data. These other reports in Performance Tracker, you see the standards bar chart and the comparative reports on standards and the standards testing frequency. These are standards-based reports, and it's kind of hard to get information out of these particular reports, and we don't use them that often. I think one of the problems is how the frameworks are set up. So if you were to have a certain standard, any question that pertained to that standard would be entered in here. So say a yes or no, really level 1 question would have the same weight as a more in-depth explain your answer question. So these 3 reports, we don't really get good information out of these, so we don't use them very often. Karen, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I was trying to decide whether I agreed. I think that the last point with regard to different point values is significant, but I do think that if you have local assessments and you set them up by standards in here, I do think that it would be very informative, because then you would get a report for your students that spoke directly to standards mastery.
Right.
Which I really like. But unless you are setting up those which plenty of people do set up their own frameworks and put in local data.
Right.
But they're not as useful for the automatically input assessment data, the stuff that's automatically uploaded.
Exactly. Yeah, so when you do input things, and there are other reports too that will show you how you're doing on a certain standard or a cluster as well. So so we'll look at those in a few minutes. But these are here, and just wanted to show them to you and kind of just caution you that there's some drawbacks to that, but it can work really well depending on how you input your data into the framework.
And I wouldn't let it stop you. Like, in other words, I think it's a really strong tool if you align your frameworks to the standards, which is an amazing way to go. So
that's sort of the ultimate, right?
Yeah, it is the ultimate. And we can help you with that. I just want to say, like, Lisa and I and Anne, and we can help you to create those frameworks anytime. It's probably our favorite thing to do, actually.
It actually is, which sounds kind of funny, but it's true.
Yeah. Like, we love putting in local data that's aligned to standards because it's so useful ultimately.
Yes, it's amazing what can jump out. The next one we're going to talk about is the assessment sections bar chart. So this is more useful, and this is really good for local assessments, and also it's good for the state assessments. And this will show how students did on separate sections of an assessment. So you can determine strengths and weaknesses on a certain assessment. This is what it would look like. So if my sections in my assessment are set up to match the domains, then this information will show the student's progress in those domains. And you could set it up to show clusters. I mean, these are the domains in math, so operations and algebraic thinking, numbers and operations, base 10, this would be numbers and operations and fractions, measurement and data, and geometry, which looks really good on this particular group. So depending on how you set it up, you can see the progress in any domain or section, however granular it is that you build it into the performance tracker. So this one is showing fact fluency for the different operations. Not surprising, division is lower than the others, but this actually looks really great. I'd be very happy with that in my classroom.
There's a question that just came in.
Okay.
This data, they wanted to know if this is an individual report or if this is a full report, like of a bunch of kids. This is aggregate, right? I think
it is.
Yeah.
I think it is.
This is.
For a class.
Yeah.
But I think you could. Can you get it on at the student level?
Yeah, you could. You could.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, but you could, but then you also could just as soon look at their student detail page. So yeah, this is for a population of kids, not for a single student, what you're seeing right now.
Right, exactly. I think all of these are for, say, a grade or a class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there are lots of different ways to kind of get the same data. It just, you'll develop, you'll develop a liking for certain reports and different representations of the data. So this is how this one looks. The last one I have is, this is an older one. This is a science, the scale score, and then broken down physical science, earth science, life science, and inquiry. So that's what those look like, the assessment sections shown in a bar chart and in table form. The next one that we have are the assessment scores. And this is a great report that we use a lot. You can look at just one assessment, or you could look at assessments over the years from year to year. You can also track a student from year to year over time. And this is a really good report to use for making groups of students for interventions, for example. So if we go, this one, I think this was for maybe a local assessment every, I think it shows it in the next slide, but I think it's like an everyday math end of year assessment. So when this report comes up, it is sorted by student name alphabetically. And what we know about this in this particular report, really all we know, is that the total points was 71, and it's sorted by student name. You can, if you point on this little triangle thing, sort it by any of the columns that are there. This only has a couple of columns, so you can sort by score, high to low, so you can see easily kind of where the kids are, or you can go low to high, just click on it and it'll kind of toggle back and forth. If you wanted to get back to student name, you would just click on student name. So this report is just showing the score for one assessment. This next report looks a little more complicated, but this is showing one assessment that has the total score and the different sections. So these sections are broken up into the domains. So this was everyday math, end of year for 4th grade. So when it first comes up, you'll see it's sorted by student name alphabetically, and the total score is on the far right-hand side. So those were the two columns we saw in the last. All in the middle are the different sections. And again, if you're looking at this, we can see that student 1 did best in the fraction section. So it's color coded like level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 that we've gotten so used to, so we can kind of see by color how they're doing. And then if you wanted to sort these into really useful categories, you could choose any one of these columns and hit the little triangle and say we want to look at fractions and sort that. This is from high to low in this particular category. So all of these students scored at high proficiency in fractions, and then these are proficient and these are approaching proficiency. So you can kind of get a feel for grouping your students for any interventions or enrichment activities that you may want to provide for them. What else? Let's see. Anything else on this, Karen, with the sections?
No, I was just looking at what I was thinking while you were talking is just how much more information the sections give us than the total score.
Right.
Know? I mean, I really think that that's pretty amazing when you can so easily look and see. I mean, I'm looking at the kid, the first kid that had 45 out of 71, right? And you know, that student scored fairly low. He's red, but then if you look at the strengths the kid has, it's sort of interesting to see the student has strengths in geometry, right? And relative strengths in measurement and data and numbers and operations base 10. And I just think it's it allows you to go into intervention with a different headset. Like, okay, this particular student has some areas of deficit, right? But now I can also point out to that student what his areas or her areas of strength are.
Right. I think that's a great point.
Amazing.
And this other kid below that has 45 is really strong in geometry.
Yes.
Like this is, overall red, but blue here. So I think that's really great. You can kind of get to know your students holistically, because everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and a total score may or may not let you know that. So the next report is also cool. So this one is one assessment showing the different sections. The next report shows multiple assessments. So this is showing second grade, everyday math, end of year. And this is third grade, everyday math, end of year. Fourth grade, everyday math, end of year. So this is over time how these students did. So anywhere you see white, that student doesn't have a score for that assessment. So, they were in a different school perhaps. But this, you can see the trends over time. Student number 1 had maybe, kind of level 3 and then dipped down here in third grade, but popped back up in fourth grade. So you can see these trends happening. You can, let's see. Oops, I wanted to go back.
That was a really weird and interesting report.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I had another slide of it. Oh, I know. This one is not sorted alphabetically. This one happens to be sorted by the fourth grade score. So maybe we're looking at this and saying, okay, this is where they are now. So these kids are all in the level 3-ish area, proficient or secure, and then these are approaching that, and these are having a little bit, they need a little bit more help or support. But it's interesting to see where they came from. Like this kid started off gangbusters and has kind of dropped down. So let's maybe go back here and look at the standards here and where were strengths and weaknesses here, and what kind of is going on. It's interesting to look at that. Sadly, I'd like to see more blue over here.
I know. It's a really interesting, makes me really wonder about the end of year EDM assessments.
Exactly. And also we need to remember that when we're looking at a local assessment, it's not as obviously standardized as like the SAS, and the scoring may be different as well. So, you have to kind of account for that. And this again is data out of the de-identified database. So, this is just one random class and kind of fake data, but it's not representative of any overall trends. It's just when I'm looking at this, I pretend like it's my class and I think, let's see, what can I do? So, okay, so that would be the assessments. And we're going to go on to the next report, which is level movement. Were there any questions on those that we didn't cover?
Not that anyone wrote in.
Okay. I forgot to say at the beginning, in the handouts section, we have 2 handouts. One is the certificate for you, so you can print it off and you use that for your professional development hours. And the other handout is a PDF of this PowerPoint. So you will be able to go back to any of these reports and kind of take a look at them. So if there's anything, you're like, oh, wait, don't go past that slide, I want to look at it longer. You do have that. You could write in and say, stop, I want to look at that a little longer, but also you have it in the handouts.
And did we talk about the recording, Lisa?
I probably forgot to say that too.
Yeah.
This presentation is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our website. So if you want to go back and review a certain report and what we said about it, you've got your PDF of the PowerPoint, and you can also go back and listen to this recording again anytime.
And it's in, there's a consortium on the website called PerformancePLUS Resources, I think. And so just so you know what to choose once you get on. And if you need help getting on, you can email Lisa or I.
Yes, and our contact information will be at the end of the presentation. So yes, perfect. All right, we're gonna move on to the next report, and this one's kind of a crazy report. It's called the Level Movement Report. And this allows you to see general movement and levels from one assessment to another. And the example that I'm going to show you is using the same 3 assessments. I think it was 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade end of year everyday math. And so this is it. It's pretty cool looking, actually. It shows you general trends from year to year. And again, in this case, because it's a local assessment and it's not standardized, and it's not as standardized as, say, the state level test, the arrows are kind of going all over. You would hope, I mean, ideally, like this is a good overview, like a good visual, and ideally, you want your arrows kind of going in the same direction and hopefully up and to the right. But it is kind of interesting to take a look at this.
And there's also a chart that accompanies this.
Oh yeah, I don't think I have a slide with that.
No, I don't think you do either. And you know, we always find different people like to look at data differently, right? So
Yes.
sometimes, you know, whatever. There's also a chart that shows you, it'll tell you exactly how many kids moved up from the 2nd grade to the, you know, the 3rd grade and so on.
Yeah.
And this is a cohort of kids, isn't this? I mean, this is a rough cohort.
Yes. All of these kids took all 3 of these assessments. Yes, and it is from their 2nd grade, their 3rd grade, their 4th grade. And all pretty much, most of the reports that I can think of have graphical representation and a table as well. And there's a little bit, you know, different information included in each. Like in the pie charts, on the pie, we gave the number of students in each category. And then on the table, it had the percentage. So, so you can, you know, just get the information that you need or that, you know, speaks to you in the different representations. But, okay, this is the level movement. It's a good, you know, just a good visual to kind of start off, or maybe, you know, if you're reporting to a school board or something, you might use this to kind of give them an idea of the overall trends. Okay, I love this one. It's the NE2 scatter plot. Let's see. I think these can be really interesting because you can pick any 2, really anything. You can pick any 2 years or any 2 subjects or any 2 assessments, and you can see whether how well these things correlate. So, you know, I can pick ELA and math, and I can see, like, are my students, you know, are my students good at both of them, or are some of them, you know, like how many are kind of stronger or weaker in one or the other. And then if I pick 2 different assessments, we could see if those assessments are aligned or not. And it will let you see if students who are scoring at similar levels on 2 different assessments, to see if they're assessing, if those assessments are assessing the same skills or not. So I'll give you a couple of examples on this. This is an NE2 scatter plot showing 2 different years. So this is the New Hampshire SAS math for 3rd graders in 2018. And then these are those same students in grade 4 in 2019. So each blue dot represents a student that took both of these assessments. And then this kind of blobby thing, it looks like a neuron or something, this represents the average. So in this school, grade 3 and 4, the average was up here in the high level 2 for both years. Okay, so everything in this first column, this was all level 1 in grade 3, anything in this column. So right here, all of the students in this red box scored a level 1 in grade 3 and a level 1 in grade 4. All of the students, the dots in this box, scored a level 2 in grade 3 and a level 2 in grade 4. This box is a level 3 both years, and this box is the level 4 both years. So what's interesting is looking at these students here. So in 3rd grade, all of these blue dots that you see here scored a level 1, and in 4th grade, these have moved up to a level 2. So that's great progress. These 1, 2.5 here scored a level 1, or these 2 anyway, scored a level 1, and they've moved all the way up to a level 3 in grade 4. So that's great. So you can kind of take a look at these. The tighter this line is, the more correlated these two things are. So if your dots are all over the place, then there's really no correlation, but you would expect to see some correlation between grade 3 and grade 4, same students, same test. And in this case, if I drew a line straight through here, it looks to me like there are more dots above, which means the trend is that students are moving up a level rather than down a level. So like these two here scored a level 4 in grade 3, and they've dropped down to a level 3 in grade 4. So it's kind of nice to see in this case, you would like to see all your dots kind of up here. So that's a 2-year comparison.
Somebody wrote in, not a question, but they wrote in a comment and they said it was a cool report.
I love it too. It's my favorite. This one shows ELA and math. So this is grade 4 in last year's English Language Arts, compared their ELA score, compared with the same kid's math score from the same year. So again, all of these kids got a level 1 on both. These guys got a level 2 on both, level 3 on both, and a level 4 on both. So in this box, think for 1 second and tell me, well, you don't have to tell me because I can't hear you, but
they can write it in.
Yeah, try that. Do that, write in all of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What happened with these guys?
I see someone's typing. Oh, we got a response. It says that what does it say? It says that these people, those students scored in a level 4 in 3rd grade, but a level 3. No, that's not what it was. I think they confused the graph, but they did say that the horizontal graph they scored a 4 and the vertical graph a 3. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So these guys, they did do better on the horizontal than on the vertical. So they did better on their ELA. They're all 4s on ELA and 3s on math. Oop, oh no, go back. Yeah, here we go. And then Where are these? There are none that got a 4 in math and a 3 in ELA. Is that right? No, yeah, these. No.
No.
Interesting.
But not so surprising considering our scores in SAS and ELA versus math statewide.
Right. And this, again, you know, you can see that if you drew a line of best fit, it would go, you know, it's more distributed than the other one was when we were comparing the same test over time. And so anyway, it's kind of interesting that I have one last NE2 scatter plot, and this one compares the performance on 2 different assessments. So looking at the horizontal axis, we can see that this is the SAS test in ELA for grade 5. And we're comparing that to the iReady for ELA in grade 5. So again, these boxes are highlighted. Anyone inside of one of these red boxes scored the same level on both assessments. But if you look at our blobby average here, the average score was a level 1 on the SAS, but a level, let's see.
3.
I know it says level 3. That's what I'm pausing a little bit. But yeah, so it's, I mean, iReady and SAS have different bands, but so this is a level 3 in iReady. So you might be thinking, oh, we're a level 3, and then be a little bit surprised in this particular situation, in this particular school, that the SAS, you're not as high as you may have thought you would be. So it's just interesting. You can, if you've gathered data for iReady or STAR or both, you could compare those 2 assessments and see how well they align with one another.
But for
so
me,
anyway, I like these. I think
an important piece. Can I jump in? Do you mind?
No.
An important piece of information here is just that if you're thinking that your iReady assessments are preparing your students for a score of proficient on New Hampshire SAS, you might want to do a deeper analysis of that.
It's just good to check on these things. Okay, so there was my favorite one. We'll move on. This one, I like this one too. We use this a ton. This is the comparative report and achievement levels. This gives a great visual. It shows the data again as both a graph and as a table, and you can get the results over grades or over years, lots of different ways to return the information. And this is used for the SAS reports. And it's at the cluster level for the SAS reports. In this case, the example that I've given you is not at the cluster level. This is the SAS ELA for grade 4, and this is the overall score. And then these are the 2 domains.
These are the reporting categories.
Oh, yes, that is true. The reporting categories.
But it's not a big deal. I'm just remembering from our presentation.
Yes, but I think the reporting categories, well, no, they're not always the same as the domains. This is how it gets reported into PerformancePLUS. And so it shows a great visual. If you did click on more detail, you could return this report with cluster level information. And so it gives you a nice graph of kind of exactly where everyone is as a grade or as a class, you could see. And then the table gives you the same information. It gives you an extra bit of information, which is the total number of students. So I think when I made this slide, I picked the entire state of New Hampshire for this particular thing because there's so many students. The overall ELA score is reported into level 1, 2, 3, and 4. The reporting categories are only reported in 3 levels. So you're not going to see blue here, and you're not going to see it down here either. And that's just the way the data gets returned. Once you drill down to the cluster level, it would go again to the 4 reporting levels. So, any questions on this one?
Nobody's writing them in.
All right, they've probably seen this one. If you've seen any of them, you've seen this one for sure. Let's see. So these are the performance tracker reports that we talked about. So, you know, if you want to go back and review, you'll know that we really did cover these ones with the X, and we kind of didn't talk too much about the ones that don't. These tend to be the ones that are used most often. The last thing we're going to talk about today are the assessment builder reports. We're kind of running a little bit late, which is crazy. If you need, are people needing to go, Karen?
No, and I think you have till 4:15, so.
Okay, I've got a few more minutes. Okay.
All right.
We'll see where we are at 4:15. Okay. These are the assessment builder reports, and if you remember from the beginning, these were the item level reports, and there are 2 of these that are really, really useful. One is the item analysis by question. So this report will tell you how students did by question, and you can figure out which questions students were most successful on and which ones were the ones they struggled on. And it gives some good visuals. This is an item analysis by question, and this is question 6 in a science assessment, an older science assessment. So this was a multiple choice question, and you can see from the graphic that most of the students picked the right answer, which is shown in, I don't know, green or blue, teal. So, you know, this kind of shows you the breakdown of how many students picked which answer, what the percentage was. And so in this case, you'd say, all right, well, most of my students got this, and I could look at my students and see who struggled and got the wrong answer and which was the answer they chose. The next one is kind of interesting because you'd look at this and you'd say, oh, well, you know, most of them, this is 527 students in this case, most of them got the right answer, but an awful lot of them picked question A. So you might want to review that question and see, why did they pick question A? Was there something about the wording or something that was tricky that kind of led students to, so many students to pick the same wrong answer? In the last one, the last example I have, you can see most students picked the right answer, but the wrong answers, A, B, and C, and these are, it also shows you how many people left it blank. The wrong answers are kind of all over the map. So maybe people are guessing. So maybe these guys got it, but these guys, they didn't really know, so they just kind of picked any answer. That would probably include some of your correct answer people too.
Lisa,
so,
there's a question.
Okay.
Somebody wrote in, they wanted to know if you could get this for SAS.
I don't think we can because they don't release the questions, right?
Right, yeah, I agree.
Also, yeah, I don't, you can't get it for SAS, but if you use the modular assessments, then you can drill down to the question level and you can show the questions and you can see how each student answered each question. But that is, of course, in the assessment, the New Hampshire assessment portal area. But so you can get it there, but you wouldn't be able to get it here because they don't release of questions like this.
But I think that they're thinking, I think it's on the docket to put the modular assessment results into Performance Plus. That's something we've been talking about.
That would be awesome.
And so just to point out, like if you had a local assessment that had items, then you would be able to use this report.
Yes, you would be able to. And we have a content library for questions that are related that, we can build in more questions if you would want them. This one is did I skip a page here? No, I didn't. All right, this one, all the other ones were for multiple choice questions. This is an example of a short answer. So the kids were asked to choose, a characteristic and explain what a person has to do to learn this characteristic. So the score was anything from a 0 to a 4. And we can see in this case, there was one student who scored a 4 and 11 students who scored a 3 and, 13 who scored a 0 on this. So we can see how they did even on a non-multiple choice question. And you can view this here. So that, it does have other kinds of questions. The last section that we're going to talk about is the item analysis by student. And so this will tell which questions students had the most success on and which ones struggled, and which students were more successful and who needs more help on a certain item or question. So again, this is another report that you can use to group your students for interventions or enrichments. It looks like this. So this has the student name, the overall score, and then it's broken down into every question. So this kind of looks like it does, if you did the modulars on the SAS website, you have each question at the top. So this currently is sorted alphabetically by student. So the first student got 56 of the 71 points, and each question in this case was worth 1. You either got it wrong or right. So he got number 1 right, number 2 right, and then 3, 4, 5, and 6 were wrong. So you can see by student. If you want, you can sort it by score. So this kid got a 65, and then these got 63 and on down. And you can kind of see there's a whole bunch of red here underneath 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1 and 2 look solid, at least up here at the top of the sorting. This obviously would go down and you'd see some yellow and red for the rest of your class. But it looks like these first 2 questions, questions 7 and 8, look really strong, but you can see where the red is clumped together. So this is just sorted by overall score. You could sort it by each question. If you wanted to really dig down into question 6, here are your arrows. You can sort from high to low or low to high. Another way to sort this report, this one is sorted by student name and also by the correct answer frequency. So what you see that's different here is we're not looking at question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are looking at the questions the students did, the whole class did the best at, all the way out to, it would go on and on until you got to the ones where they did the worst. So every single kid got number 38 correct. And then for number 58, 93.9 of them got it correct, and so on. So you can really see the difference in the questions in the item analysis. The next screen shows you the other end of this same report. So these are the questions. Only 15.2% got question number 3 correct. So, we might want to dig down into this a little bit more and figure out, what's happening down here. Do I need to reteach that? have we not gotten to that yet? You know, maybe we had an assessment that assessed, you know, kind of a little bit ahead of where we were. Another thing that can happen is you might look at a question the students did really well on, and a question that they didn't do well on, and maybe that's on the same standard, and you'll think, wow, you know, I don't understand why in this case it's the same skill that we're assessing, but why did they do well on this question and very poorly on another question assessing the same skill? And if you look at the question, one specific example was the question that had a picture with it. Students did really well, and then assessing that same skill when they didn't have a picture, they didn't do well. So it's not the concept that the students were having trouble with, it was they needed a little bit more help with that strategy of drawing a picture to represent the information that you have. So you can get, you know, if you look at these reports, things will jump out at you and you can really reflect on your instruction and where your students are. So that's it for what I have for you. And if you have any questions, again, we're happy to stay a little later and answer them, or we are available by email or by phone, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. I did want to just make you aware there are a couple more Performance Plus webinars that are coming up in the near future. So in December, there's a webinar on housing local assessment data in P+. And in January, it will be this same webinar, but level 2. And I want to make you aware of some digging into data offerings. So this, all of these webinars and workshops are available to anyone in the state for free. And this is a partnership we have with the New Hampshire Department of Education to educate everyone about using data effectively. So we have, and this is all on our website, these are a whole bunch of webinars and some workshops as well. So these are open to anyone in the state. So you are welcome to join us at any time. And the last sheet I have here is our contact information. So again, thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry I ran over a couple minutes, but if you have questions and want to stay, great. We are here and we'll answer, but otherwise have a great evening. Thanks.
If you want to, if you're going to stay on and you want to go into Performance Plus Live, you can feel free to write in the question box and we can unmute you. In the past, we've spontaneously unmuted people at the end of the webinar, and it is a bit of a disaster because people don't know they've been unmuted. So
that could be.
I see that most people have signed off, except
okay.
a couple. So we're just gonna wait 15 seconds, and if you want to go live, we're happy to stay on, and if not, if you don't have time today and you want to email Lisa or me, we are happy to do that with you through virtual meeting at any time. Okay.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, India.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. This is a great presentation.
Why, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We're going to sign off.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.